The following is a conversation with Andy Scott, one of the UK's top amateur bodybuilders, having won numerous titles over the last 10 years. Andy specialises in muscle growth and has developed a variety of tools, systems, protocols and training methods that has enabled him to gain over 50 pounds of muscle over the course of the last 5 to 7 years. This is Inside Matters. My name is Dr. James McElroy. I hope you enjoy it. Let's talk a little bit about what bodybuilding is and what the difference is between the competitive bodybuilding and, I guess, the bodybuilding you could do from the age of 40 till whenever. Yeah. So what are the differences?
Well, competitively, obviously, you've got the whole competitive nature in it. So we're trying to develop the most developed physique across, if we're talking about stage day, you're talking about being as conditioned as possible, as low body fat as possible, the best structure, the best flow, best symmetry, all these aspects come into play, and you're then judged to the man next to you on stage. So, and then recreational bodybuilding, you're just purely doing it off what you desire to see in the mirror. And like right now, I compete as a super heavyweight.
So what does that mean?
Super heavyweight is 225 pounds and over. So I'm literally just trying to get as big as humanly possible. Also, the thing about bodybuilding as well, we're not just trying to go for sheer mass. We still do need to kind of, structure our training in a sense that we're trying to almost like quote unquote carve the body out of stone. So I've always struggled to bring my shoulders up. So I need more shoulders. That will emphasize my taper and things like that. So we're not just purely trying to add muscle everywhere, but if you are going to break it down to kind of general terms, it would be just trying to get as big as humanly possible just now. So, I mean, I compete, to give you some perspective, not to blow smoke, but I would say I'm one of the top amateurs in the UK, and I'm getting beaten by guys who are 10, 15, 20 pounds heavier than me. So that gives you some perspective, and that's a lot of size.
And that's presumably pure lean.
Yeah, that's
mass.
lean tissue.
When you're on stage, like, what's your body composition? It's like you're at your biggest, but you're at your leanest as well. Yeah, essentially. Yeah. So
absolutely zero body fat. Well, not zero, but that's impossible. But
right.
If we go by, there's a machine in my gym that we use. Obviously, the most accurate is a DEXA scan, but we don't have access to that. Right. But the machine was telling me I was something like just under 3. I'm at leanest.
3%.
Just under 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the average male is like 19, 20 something?
Yeah, 20-ish. Yeah,
and you'll start to see your abs at what kind of level?
I would say just above 10. I would say, yeah. So it's not a nice state to be in. It is not pleasant at all.
How do you feel when you're at that level?
The most basic of thoughts, like, honestly, there's been times where I've been like struggling to remember how to spell my name. I've been that depleted and just brain fogged. Just the most basic of tasks, like pouring a cup of coffee. That you're like, oh God, I've got to pour a cup of coffee. Yeah. I've got quite a big kitchen, right? So my sink's over here and my fridge is over here. So just being like, I've got to get something from the fridge. Right, I need to be strategic about this. I need to, like, if I've got to get this, I'll get this, get this, get this. That means only do one trip going to the fridge. It's like wee things like that.
That's how your day goes?
That's how, the whole day. Yeah.
And let's just say you've got the show on date X. For how long before date X do you feel like that? Because it sounds, your quality of life,
it's awful. Yeah.
It doesn't sound amazing. Let's also talk about how you get the energy when you're on stage, because you've got to perform. What do you have to do when you're on stage? Right.
So there's in competitive bodybuilding, open bodybuilding, there's quote here, nine poses. That's what we call compulsory poses. So we do these poses next to each other. The judges will move you. They'll shimmy people around. They want to compare who they think is number 1 next to who's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th.
So they say, right, this person's looking particularly good.
Yeah.
They're looking particularly good. Let's get them together.
Yeah, and see where they line up. So
and that sort of whole thing around they look good. Is there set criteria?
Yeah. There's set. So most bodybuilding federations, IFBB being the number 1, that's like the FIFA of bodybuilding. They all have set criteria of what they like to see the most. And there's also bodybuilding's a bit like fashion. You've got all these trends. So some years, like currently, the current Mr. Olympia, which is the #1 guy in the world, he's a monster. Like Big Ramy. I don't know he's got a
Mark, can we
Muslim name.
Can we get Big Ramy up? Yeah, we'll have a look.
It's pretty easy to find.
I'm sure.
So he's currently #1, and in his off season, which is the time of the year where we put on size, I think he's currently 153 kilo, and he's only 5'10". So,
wow.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That gives you
okay, so he's huge. So the current trend is
mass,
just
size,
right?
Yeah,
oh, here we go.
There it is.
Here we go.
I don't know how many of these will be photoshopped, but
that's interesting. So
that's his last win.
Wow,
Mr. Olympia. I think he's probably about 290 pounds there.
Wow. I mean, to get to that body fat with that mass, that's surely going against. In fact, the whole process of trying to lose as much fat as possible whilst preserving as much muscle as possible goes against like what we've evolved to do, right?
Yeah. You're not supposed to look like that.
No.
Yeah.
So
It's a bit bold,
so Big Ramy's is huge. Have bodybuilders just been getting bigger and bigger?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Every sport advances. I mean, what was the 100 meters back in the 60s? You know, it couldn't have been under 10 seconds. So every sport has evolved, and bodybuilding, as many people don't want to admit it's a sport, I consider it a sport. It has evolved, and it's just people just wanting to push the boat more and more and more and more each time. So there is a limit to human growth.
And what is that limit? Has anyone achieved?
I think Big Ramy is close to it.
Big Ramy is probably as big as a human can get.
Yeah, we are genetically bound. Again, that's another thing people don't like to admit. You know, we are genetically bound as to how much size you can actually put on before it becomes, you know, to detriment to your health. You know, so
I mean, presumably at 153 or whatever it was, kg, and 5'10". Is it not starting to be detrimental?
I was detrimental about 20 kilo ago. So, I mean, for myself, I'm not that heavy. This morning I was 135 kilos.
So there's a 20 kg difference.
Yeah. And that's he's way leaner than me as well. So, and I'm an inch taller.
So is your aim, Andy, to be better than Big Ramy? So you're going to have to get that big, or
no?
No,
I wouldn't say so. No, that physique to me, that was just up on the screen. I can say I know it's impressive. It is impressive to me, but that is not the kind of look that I'd want for myself. Right. It's too big. It's, at the end of the day, I'm sure there's people who kind of look at me and say that's too big. But I think I said to you last week, like I think I've hit that point where I'm satisfied with how I look.
That's a great place to be.
Yeah,
that's a great place to be.
Yeah, if I didn't compete, number one, if I didn't compete, I wouldn't be this size. But I think I'd be very, very happy where I am, and I am very happy where I am. But I know that if I want to take this sport to another level, I need to push my body to that level. So,
can I take us back to when we had Big Ramy up? We were talking about Photoshop. So how big a thing is Photoshop now? Because I guess most people have social media platforms and they have people they idolize. But it sounds to me like, and we have touched on this in the past, there's a lot of Photoshop now, and people are just editing the way they look. Editing everything, right? So even photos of Big Ramy, who's the biggest guy in the world, people, or maybe he is editing. So
yeah, well, that photo there that we pulled up there, that clearly has a filter on it. Like, he is gigantic and he is shredded, but even then they still filter it to make him look sharper and harder. So yeah, I've said before, if I didn't have the job that I have and I didn't compete in bodybuilding, I wouldn't have social media. I think do
you think it's a dangerous thing?
I think with some people it is. Yeah, I think for myself, I'm sure you're the same. You can turn off from it. You're like, you know what I mean? But I don't know. It's very smoke and mirrors for me. So
we're now straying away from bodybuilding, but that's fine. Do you think the world would be a better or worse place without social media? And you can give it a bodybuilding angle, you know.
Bodybuilding, yeah, it's a better place.
Better place without?
No, with
right.
Yeah, because the sport is such a cult niche sport, it needs social media. It's not, it's not on Sky Sports, it's not on ESPN. It needs another platform to get popular and be popular, and it is getting more popular. And I think when I first started, there was nowhere near the amount of eyes on there is now.
Even if you go back to like Arnold Schwarzenegger and what people call the golden era.
Yeah.
You're training in Venice Beach and what have you.
Yeah.
Was it bigger then or?
No.
It's bigger now, yeah?
It's definitely bigger now.
Wow.
It's 100% bigger now. You've got so many different avenues in the competitive realm as well. It's not just bodybuilding, because to achieve that level of physique, I mean, I've been training competitively for 10, 11 years, and then in total about 14. So people don't want to spend that amount of time to become a super heavyweight bodybuilder. So,
and is that how long it takes? 10 plus years of solid work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Walk us through like a week to week for you now, and give us some perspective on how you feel, and what I mean is, so first of all, it's interesting seeing you here speaking to me rather than shouting at me, telling me to
do one more, come on,
do one more. But I didn't really know what training to failure meant until you started training me, and I forget until I have another session with you.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, 10 or 15 minutes into a session with you, I'm going, oh my goodness, am I going to make it?
Yeah.
And then when you make it, you feel good. But what I find fascinating, and I find it also really inspiring, is that you're doing that every day, every year, for over a decade. So give us some perspective on what it's like.
Initially, when I first started training, I was blown away as well. I was like, I don't know if I can do this day to day, but you do get into a rhythm of doing it. It does become just a kind of like a second nature thing. You do get used to it. And now I can't train anything less than that. I really, really struggle. I have to write down in paper. I have to write goals down for myself to tell myself to back off when I need to take certain periods of time to back off. So like that external voice telling me you need to back off to let this heal or whatever. But I don't know. I just go to a certain place in my head. It's a very, I think I said to you, I don't know how this is going to sound, but it's a violent place. It needs to be, to put 220 kilo plus on your back and try and go until literally your legs can't do anymore. You need to have that animalistic, thought process.
When you mentioned it a few times, but are we talking about failure? Or are we talking about as heavy as you can to failure? And then doing it again and again.
Yeah,
right.
Heavy as you can to failure.
So in terms of maximizing muscle growth, which you mentioned earlier around, like that's the key goal. Is it training to failure? Is that what you need to do?
To add, in my opinion, to add as much size as humanly possible in the shortest time possible, yes. Yeah, definitely. I think you could, the physique that I'm sitting here with the same, just talking, the same person, so me, same genetics, I think I could still get this level of physique, but it'd have taken me maybe 20 years instead.
Wow.
Training at a lesser intensity, I would say so.
So let's talk about the intensity then. I mean, I guess you don't know until you've done it or you see it. I mean, maybe, I don't know, is there videos of you training online?
Yeah, we've got a YouTube account.
On YouTube?
Yeah.
Mark, can we get it up?
So it's AMS Muscle on YouTube.
We can watch. But this training to failure piece then, have all bodybuilders always trained to failure? Has that always been the underlying principle, or is it more like, was it one person who championed it and everyone went, actually,
I would say a lot of them did and just didn't know that was a thing. You know what I mean? Like, so I want to win, so I'm going to push until my body breaks, basically. I think that's kind of what the thought process at the time was. But now we've kind of had more university studies and things like that. And a lot of, obviously, bodybuilding theory is very anecdotal. So we've seen that... there's me.
Is this a promotional video, or is this, we'll actually see some...
No, this is the intro to my YouTube account.
We can see...
is this the last one that I put up?
Purely by the look on your face in that last video, you're obviously working very hard.
If you want to fast forward it, maybe about 6 minutes.
Here we are in Future Fitness. Great gym, by the way.
Shout out to Future Fitness.
Yeah, shout out to Future Fitness. Yeah, it is.
Must also apologise for my attire.
Oh, you're not
suited and booted.
You're not repping.
I was like, I don't have suits.
No, your excuse that I don't think they have suits that.
If you go to
Chris is an interesting guy. He's always shouting at you.
Yeah, he's very intense. So these are T-bar rows. So this is probably
funny.
where the intensity you can kind of see. So, I mean, that's just a warm-up weight. That's me struggling to get in because I'm currently putting on size. So.
Oh, man.
So yeah, I do things like that. I mean, I have to like face away from the weight just to kind of get into the right zone. Because if I stare at the weight too much, it's intimidating. I think this is still a warm-up though. So.
So you've got your own video log, right? Yeah. And your own channel.
Yeah, own channel. Yeah, AMS Muscle. Yeah, on YouTube.
Muscle.
So.
Yeah, this is definitely still a warm up.
Yeah.
But you're still working hard.
Yeah, so that's I can only do like 6 reps there just to kind of get my body affiliated with the movement, even though I've done it a million times. It's still good. So
there you go. I think back a bit.
There we go.
Yes, this must be a proper set now.
This is the middle of the drop.
There we go.
Yeah, so this is the middle of the drop set. So
you're getting yourself hyped, or you've already done a set?
I've already done a bit already because that's only one plate. Rewind.
This is how you get big.
Not one plate.
So what's the drop set then?
Drop set is just an incremental drop after you've reached failure in a set. So you can see I'm pushing every single plate or every single weight increment to absolute failure after that point.
Wow.
So I think I've done 8 plates. Wow. So that's 4 there.
And I mean, you spend a lot of time in Future Fitness. How many people in there, and I'm not sort of dissing anybody in Future Fitness, okay, I'm not, but how many people there are training to failure like you? Very few, I think.
Percentage-wise, less than 1%.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But
like, this is the thing is, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And like, I have no, when I have like new guys and girls come in, like, and they see that for the first time, like I'm not surprised by the reaction. It is hard. It's very, very hard. You have to. Also, there wasn't just one day I stepped into the gym and started training like that. I was over time. That's evolved. That's evolved like anything. So,
how did your training sort of start and then evolve then to, and also how this training to failure piece? Will you have to train like that every day now for another 10 years to get to where you want to get to?
In terms of building the size that I need, yeah. But there will come a point, hopefully, where the training will need to switch because, I just turned 30, so I still feel good. I still really good. Joints and all that are okay. I've had no major injuries bar one. But there will come a time where I have to change things about and use different techniques and methods to kind of get the look that I want. But right now, I need to add slabs of muscle to the physique. So, I need to kind of train like that for the time being anyway.
And when you started training, when was that and how has it evolved since then?
I've done a wee bit with rugby. I'm sure you did like yourself.
Yep.
And,
you were Aberdeen Grammar.
Aberdeen Grammar, yeah.
I played for Aberdeen Grammar as well, and also RGC.
Yeah.
But not anymore.
That was a good time. So I've honestly, that time of my life, I adore it. Yeah. I miss it so much.
The rugby?
I really miss rugby, big time.
The team element?
Maybe not that, just the...
Hard game.
Just a good hard game on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon.
Something lovely about that, isn't
yeah, definitely.
Chris Winter's morning.
Yeah.
You play amazing.
On the bus. Yeah, that's good.
I do miss that. I'll tell you though, I got the same feeling from my Aberdeen University weightlifting club. Mm-hmm. That sort of team feeling, even though we're all training for ourselves. Yeah. There are videos online of the Aberdeen University weightlifting club.
Them,
and it was nuts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There was like 40 guys. Mm-hmm. And these days I think there's actually more women in the club than men, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Back then there was one. And she was awesome as well. She trained super hard.
Yeah.
But like we used to turn the music up to the max in there. And then there was just like 40 people going up. Yeah. And how could you not? How could you not with that much energy? And so
I love that.
One of the good things about Future as well is it's a good atmosphere, isn't there?
Yeah, it's although it's not a bodybuilding gym, it is a very supportive gym, regardless of what your goal is. So, I trained at Extreme Gym just next door for years, and it's a bit odd because I wanted away from that bodybuilding environment. I grew up in it, so I trained at Results Gym in Aberdeen for years with Graham Park, and I just kind of wanted away from that scene, but I didn't want to go to a commercial gym. I still wanted a gym that had all the best equipment, and again, we're not plugging Future Fitness here, but it is the best equipped gym
on
this side of the country. So
it's got really, really good kit.
So
I took us off piece there. Let's go back to when you started training, and how that's changed over time.
So let's go right back to the start. Then I wanted to I wanted to switch positions. I always wanted to be a flanker. Always wanted to be a flanker. I watched Jason White growing up. I just wanted to be Jason White. So I met him countless times as well. And
you put in some big hits.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, you remember Jamie Reid?
Yeah, I
yeah.
do.
So
yeah.
Jamie was always number 8 flanker, like, and he was taller than me, maybe 3 inches taller than me. And I was just like, right, if I'm not going to get that height, I need to get bigger then. So, and then from there, I kind of realized that I wasn't going anywhere with rugby. Like, I'm sure you were the same at one point, like stepping out into Murrayfield and people screaming, like, that's like the dream. But I was I don't have the skill set. I'm just not good enough. So I started to build muscle relatively easily, considering what I was eating. I was eating just the usual 16-year-old diet of just crap, basically. And I was like, oh, there's something here.
And is that the genetic element, do you think?
Yeah, definitely, 100%. Yeah.
So some people are they've got a predisposition to building muscle easier.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. So I wasn't doing anything fancy with training. I was watching YouTube videos, copying that. Just literally, that's what I was doing. Looking at magazines, copying that in the magazine, and I remember specifically because I got a membership on my 16th birthday at JGB down at the Beach Boulevard.
Yeah.
And I bought like a new like gym outfit and everything, and I grew out of it within about a month.
Wow.
So I was like, no way, this is class. So
that feels good, right?
Yeah. And then I never moved up to flanker. I stayed outside centre until I stopped playing rugby. And then, one day I was just like, nah, rugby's over. So I was like, I'm not going to put all this effort into training without a goal. There was obviously the vanity aspect. I wanted to look good and whatnot, but I was like, I need to do something. I'd been watching all these bodybuilders for a couple of years now, and I was like, well,
who was it back then?
Yeah, like Johnny Jackson, Branch Warren, Jay Cutler. I was like, cool, let's give that a bash. Found the best local bodybuilder that I could find, which was Graham Park, Mr. Universe. Literally just
at that gym in the Beach Boulevard.
Yeah. Just went up to him and says, I want to compete, and he was like, cool, this is what you need to do. It's going to suck most of the time. But if you're willing to do that, fair enough. He was very blunt to the point, because I think by that point he'd been competing since before we were born. So he'd had so many people come to him.
Where is he now? Sorry,
he's somewhere up in Elgin. He's completely got detached from the bodybuilding community now.
Does he still train?
I'm not really sure. He's big into his photography. Like he posts like 100 photos every couple of days on his Facebook.
Wow.
Yeah, completely
nature type stuff. Wow, cool. We live in an amazing country for that.
Yeah.
Big up Scotland.
He used to be the Queen's Gardener at Balmoral.
Actually,
yeah. He done that when he was competing. So he'd do like an entire gardening
really
shift.
Funny about that.
I know.
How did he manage that?
Oh, no idea. Because he used to do 0 carb diets as well for 20 weeks, and he'd do that. And there's a photo of him like topless with a wheelbarrow in Balmoral in like the Evening Express. It's hilarious.
Well, I would find that very interesting. I don't know if I can find that one, Mark. That sounds very niche.
Yeah, that would be very hard to find.
So the 0 carb diet for how long?
20 weeks, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
He's a big proponent of 0 carbs or low carbs.
And are you?
Depends on the circumstance. So if you've got someone who starts heavy, starts fat, and they're maybe 6 weeks out from a show, you probably have to go 0 carbs if you're that behind.
Is that the sort of, in your opinion, the fastest way to lose?
Oh, it's 100% the fastest way, 100%. But it's not efficient in terms of retaining muscle. You'll lose weight, but you'll lose muscle tissue in the process as well. So
interesting.
It's
really interesting.
Yeah. So where were we?
We were talking about Graham Park, 0 carb diet, how your training's evolved.
Yeah. So I met Graham, and then
you did your first show.
Yeah. So I done my first show in 2012. The NABA Scottish came second, and like it was one of those ones where. I stepped out on stage and I was like, I barely posed, and I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wow.
I instantly knew that was what I was going to do until.
So it's the stage element. Yeah. Big
time. Like when I'm on stage, I'm a character. You'll see me when I'm on stage, like, you're like, oh, this cocky arsehole like on stage. It is that. And I pretend to be that because I'm not really that in real life. I don't think I'm that at all, but I pretend to be this character on stage, and I just love it. It's where like I want to be
come alive
forever. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm a very confident person, but something being on stage, I don't know, it just gives me like a level of personality that I would not have in my day-to-day life, and I love that. So I mean, you're only on stage. I mean, I've been training 14 years. You spend maybe 5 minutes on stage. It really is. That's right. It is literally like running the 100 meters. You train all those years,
Wow.
and it's over in a split second.
Wow.
So it's
Is it one of these things where you kind of can't really even remember because all the adrenaline?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and then you can't sleep for days after because the adrenaline is just so wild.
Really?
Oh yeah. I struggle to sleep for days after it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what happens? We'll talk about what happens after the show first, and then before the show in terms of like the prep.
Yep.
After the show, you've been, I don't know, starved.
Literally starved. It's controlled starvation.
It's controlled starvation. So you're forcing your mind to, you're trying to suppress all the sort of reptilian innate.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
I'm hungry.
Yep.
We must find food.
Yep.
I don't know how you can do anything else other than try and suppress that, and that gets back to your. Well, I can't even be bothered getting a coffee.
Yeah.
What happens after the show?
So after the show, we put a game plan in place to. Sometimes it depends. So what I've done before in the past is I've slowly, incrementally put food back up. So we've gone, right, each week we'll add 50 grams of carbs back into the diet. There's been other times like this year where I've gone from dust to going back up to eating 5,000 calories immediately. My body was in such a run-down place by the end of that prep that I was like, I need to just put food back in. I can't waste time putting carbs, like dropping carbs slowly back in. So it really does depend on the strategy. Depends on how long you've been competing, how long the season's been. But in an ideal, perfect world, you would incrementally put food back in slowly.
That sounds safe.
Yeah.
There's a syndrome in medicine called refeeding syndrome. And I don't know the full ins and outs of it, but my understanding is that your electrolyte balance in the body can shift if you refeed someone who's been starving for a very long time very quickly, and that can actually kill them.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe it's slightly different because what you're actually consuming food, aren't you, when you're going into a show?
Yeah.
So, and you're probably taking a multivitamin and things like that as well. So
one of the big issues post show is water retention. So that must tie into kind of what you're kind of saying there. I mean, if you I've been on, just say, 2,000 calories for X amount of time, and then you go and put 5,000 in, the amount of water retention, extracellular water, is going to be ridiculous. So that's when you notice blood pressure issues as well. So
what about your gut? How do things operate down there? I mean, this is a gut health podcast, I guess, so we should talk about it.
So it depends on how much crap I eat, basically. As I've matured, I can easily come off stage and maybe not even eat anything, just kind of go back onto my diet, totally fine. When I was younger, I remember the end of the first season I'd done, 2012, I must have binged every day for about 2 months. And
wow.
Yeah, it was bad. Like, literally could not control the hunger signals, couldn't control appetite signals, anything. I couldn't control it. I just had to eat all the time. And my guts were in an absolute bits. It was horrendous. So
we don't need to go into all the gory details.
No.
Issues on going to the loo and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So now, eating the same kind of foods. I like your opinion. I'd like to get your opinion on this. Eating the same foods year after year after year, I found that certain things I just can't tolerate anymore. My gut just can't handle it. So my diet is so specific in terms of sources.
What do you mean by that? Like, what's your diet like at the moment?
Well, like, for instance, my carbohydrate source is gluten-free oats, white jasmine rice. Even wee things like basmati rice, I can't eat that. I can eat jasmine rice, though. It's just an ever so subtle difference, and it makes a big difference to my gut health. Protein. So
if you eat those foods, you get bloated,
indigestion,
runs to the loo,
stuff like that. Yeah. So it's very specific, and I think a lot of bodybuilders deal with that over time. A lot of guys, I've had clients where, like, we've done an elimination diet to kind of find out what's going on with their gut, and we're like, Jesus, the difference! I can't believe the difference. Even down to blood flow. It's different. It's insane, like the differences that you can see when you actually figure someone's gut out. So
well, I really do want to talk about the anecdotal pieces here in terms of like what people call bro science.
Yeah.
Because that's really just come from anecdote, but now that's starting to align to what the research is saying.
Yeah.
But also we should definitely talk about elimination diets and what I'll call self-experimentation. I think if you're eating the same thing all the time for years, then the microbes in your gut are definitely going to change and adapt to whatever stimulus you're giving them in terms of their food content.
Yep.
So I think it's plausible that if you make a big change very quickly, then, you know, maybe you're not getting as many bugs digesting that because
100%.
they're not used to it, and then that causes issues with your gut more generally. What I would say, though, is that I think because of what you do, there really won't be much in the way of scientific literature at all around what happens to the gut pre and post show. I did do some reading about the bodybuilding microbiome, and there's a very, very limited amount of evidence.
I can imagine,
But people have done research on what happens to the microbiome with a high protein diet versus a non-high protein diet.
Yep.
People have looked at the microbiome between an athlete and someone that's not an athlete. There is a company who's trying to sell you capsules that contain microbes that are derived from athlete microbiome.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
It's fascinating. I mean, to be honest with you, I think that if it was available for you're doing this prep where you're essentially cutting your food down, and the complexity of your food must change as well because it's so rigid, and you want to make sure you hit your calories every time. I think for you, sort of having a microbial product post prep might help you kind of
I'd agree with that. 100%.
And get back to where you were before. So let's talk about the anecdote then, because this is really interesting. So it's like the bodybuilding bro split, if you like, is like, let's train a body part to, I don't know why I'm doing that, but anyways, let's train the body part to failure.
Yeah.
And let's split the body parts up. And that failure piece is critical. So so people would have said, well, that's just bro science, man. Like, this is what the evidence says. The evidence says you've got to do, 0.7 RPE, all this kind of stuff. But now all the research that's coming out is saying, well, you just train to failure. Yeah. So do you think that decades of bodybuilding self-experimentation actually has given us a blueprint for how to build muscle?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, when honestly, I love all the kind of science behind it. Like, I'm an engineer and everything, so I love science and everything about it. So,
did you do that at university?
I've got a master's in subsea engineering. Can tell you anything about it now. That was ages ago. But yeah, I love reading all these studies. But the quote unquote bro that is reading it, I'm like, you're doing a study on 10 people. That's not that's a horrendous spectrum of people to come up with these conclusions of what is optimal for training. And then you look at the spectrum that they're on as well. It's like, they're all untrained, and they have, they're not tracking anything in terms of nutrition and not tracking their sleep, all this sort of stuff, all these wee things that we do, bodybuilders do all the time. And you look at the study, I'm like, okay, I can see your conclusions, but I still don't buy it. It's it really is anecdotal. You'll see some of the top coaches in the world, nutritional coaches. They'll say, eat this, and the bodybuilder are like, why? It's like, don't know. I know exactly how you'll respond though. I don't know why it does this, don't know why it does that, but I know how it's going to make you look tomorrow.
Well, just to go back a step, you've got 10 to 14 years of very rigorous self-experimentation. So my view is there's not much that a study is going to be able to tell you that you don't already know. Yeah. Because you've probably tweaked every variable and you've tracked it. So when you get to your level, like these studies, you mentioned 10 people, N equals 10 is probably not going to tell you much. Are they also people like you who've been giving it 10 to 14 years? Do you know what I'm saying? Probably not.
Very, very unlikely,
But I guess one of the other things just to raise, and this maybe goes without saying, is that in terms of funding that goes into bodybuilding research, I guess the research question would be how to get as big as humanly possible. And there's finite pots of money that people give out to do research. And you've got that as a question. And then the other question is, how do we cure Alzheimer's? Yeah, exactly. I guess, by default, more money is going to go to the latter. So there probably isn't much research that goes into how to get as big as possible. And that's why the self-experimentation thing is so important. But also speaking to other people who've been on that journey and rigorously logged it is really important. And actually, that relates to the microbiome. The microbiome is a new emerging area of science and medicine. And people often say things like, well, what do I do? What's the single best thing I can do for your microbiome? What food do I need to eat? James, what probiotic do I need to take? And I'm like, well, it's probably very individual, and there's general principles that you can apply. We'll talk more about that, but I'll just bring you back to this. There's some coaches that know if you eat that food, then this is how you'll look.
Yep.
So tell me more about that, because I think that's so interesting.
Yeah, again, that's just looking at bodies for 20 plus years. There's got coaches that in just say you're like 4 weeks out from a show, fairly lean, not far off being ready for a show, and a coach will just be like, I want you to eat cheeseburger, fries, 4 muffins, just go eat that. And then just like, but why? Like, that kind of defies kind of like fat loss kind of theory. But then we know the next day you're going to be rounder, fuller, harder. And you just can't replicate that in a study. You just can't.
No, I agree.
So it's very, very, very anecdotal. And like Chris Aceto, who's one of the top coaches in the world, top 5 coaches in the world, he openly says, like, I couldn't tell you how a protein works in the body. I don't know how, but I know what a chicken breast does in the body. I know how it'll make you look, which is the most important part. Like, it doesn't matter if I don't know the science of how muscle, how it's broken down in the body. It doesn't matter. I just need to know how you look after you've eaten it.
So he's got decades.
Well, he's got Mr. Olympia clients, which is the top number 1 in the world.
And do they all go to this gentleman because he helps them get to a point where they look their best?
He seems to have a cracking track record of getting people just in phenomenal shape. Wow. So you're obviously doing something right.
Yep, it's what we would call know-how.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, definitely.
And he's got all of that in his head, and he's probably seen a similar situation before, and this is what happened. So he's got the equivalent of all these sort of N=1 studies that you can just pull from.
Exactly. So I've been coaching for 6 years, and I've even got a little bit of that. Like I've had in the past, I've just looked at a client and gone, right, let's go 150 grams of rice the next meal. Like, how do you know how to do that? And I was like, well, I don't know what it's doing, but I know that we put it there. I'm pretty confident in how you're going to look in the next 2 to 3 hours. So it's things like that.
Fascinating.
So yeah.
Do you log what happens? Or
I write everything down. Yeah, so I got a note, so the following time we can manipulate it even more or pull back for whatever reason. And I get clients to track everything towards the end of their prep, their water, their salt, stress levels, everything all comes into play in terms of how you look. So
we've mentioned the word prep quite a lot. What is the prep or a prep? What is it?
Short for contest preparation. So usually we're looking at a 20, 16, 14 week stint of very, I don't want to say harsh. It gets harsh towards the end. It depends what your starting point is, but you're looking at that kind of time frame to get ready for a bodybuilding show.
Half a year.
Yeah. It's not an easy feat, and bodybuilding's strange because you have people coming into it. For instance, I can't go kick a ball in the park across the road and be like, right, okay, next step, I'm going to be a professional footballer. But it seems that with bodybuilding, people are like, never competed, can barely hold a diet for 2 weeks, and like, I want to be a professional bodybuilder. It's like, you have no idea what you're saying. You have no idea the level of commitment that takes. You do not. And open bodybuilding, which is what I do, is the most extreme class of all the bodybuilding classes across both male and female classes.
Open means
open, so like
unlimited weights, essentially.
And you've got classic bodybuilding, you've got men's physique, and the women have got 4 different classes as well. So
classic bodybuilding, what does that mean?
So classic is defined, is confined to a certain size. So they've got height to weight ratios. So if you're my height, 5'11", you can only be 219 pounds at your heaviest, I think.
Wow.
And that's like the day before the show. So that restricts how much size you can put on. So that's where the quote unquote classic look comes from, because classically bodybuilders back in the 60s, 70s and 80s were smaller. So that's where that comes from. So
that was going to be my question, is why is it called classic? It's because they look like
the classic look.
The classic look is smaller.
Yeah, definitely.
What are the drivers for that? What's changed? I know you said the sport's evolved.
Definitely the outlook on being super big is. I'll put my hands up. It's not the healthiest place to be. I mean, I'm 5'11", 135 kilo. I must be close to morbidly obese if we're talking about BMI scale. So I'm definitely not fit. I can lift a ton of weight. I can go to Australia, I can train super hard within that confines of lifting weight, but anything else, even lateral movement, I'm pretty poor. So
how do you feel? And you mentioned that there's people who they come in and they want to be a pro bodybuilder, but they probably don't understand how rough it is in terms of how you feel. So we've talked in the past about, like, I've sort of jokingly said, when do you actually feel good?
Yeah.
But seriously,
That's true, yeah.
What is it like in terms of the DOMs, the hunger, the feeling full, that kind of thing?
So right now I'm probably peak off season. So the point where I'm trying to add as much size as possible. I don't remember what hunger feels like, to put it bluntly. I'm never hungry, ever.
Wow.
Wow. I'll wake up.
Wow.
So I wake up, I don't eat until 2.5 hours after I've woken up. I still have I don't want to eat.
Wow.
But you have to eat.
Wow.
There is the force, I don't want to say force feeding because that's a bit too strong, but there is an aspect of you have to sit down and eat that meal. Otherwise you're not going to reach your goals. That is way harder than starving. It's force feeding is just a different beast to being hungry for a diet. Yeah, definitely, it's way harder.
So
why do you never see massive jack guys? Do you ever really? You're walking down the street.
No,
you might see people who are skinny, quote unquote skinny, lean.
Yeah,
that's easier, way easier to do.
You're talking about your look, like the if you know what I'm saying, like the gorilla look.
It's
you don't see that. No,
like for instance, I eat 6,500 calories a day. All from clean sources. That's that's not made up with donuts and junk food.
And why is that the clean? Because there's this if it fits your macros type approach, which by the way I do not buy into at all, and we can talk about that in great detail. But for you, you're trying to get as many calories in as you can, but you also want there to be high micronutrient content and things like that.
Exactly.
Right?
So, I mean, you don't want to. I can get 6,500 calories in from a pizza easy right now. That'd be pretty easy to do.
Right.
But the fat content that would come along with that, the trans fats, all the kind of horrible stuff that comes with that kind of processed food will be there as well, and that's not optimal for building muscle. When we talk about if it fits your macros, like a calorie is not a calorie. It's not. It's like 1,000 calories from chicken is way more efficient for building muscle and within your body than 1,000 calories from pork. It is. And there's
raging debates. I mean, I guess a calorie is like a measure, a unit of energy, right? And I think the definition is, and I don't want to do myself a disservice here, but something to do with
water. The
amount of energy required to boil a certain amount of to take a certain volume of water 1 degree above, something like that, right? It's so I guess from a physics perspective, it is. But what we're seeing here is that you could have 2 different plates, both 3,500 calories, for argument's sake. And I think what we're saying is the macronutrient, so the carbs, the fat, the protein split could be vastly different. And what we're also saying is like the micronutrient, so the vitamins, the minerals. I'm very interested in fiber, of course, like non-digestible fiber. That's what I'm really interested in for the gut. That can differ massively between the two. And those differences could have an impact on the things that you're primarily interested in. So muscle, building muscle,
the look, just the sheer look. So
the look,
like you talk about 2 different plates. If it's the exact same calories, if one plate is chicken, rice, and vegetables, and the other plate is just whatever, pick a junk food, you will look different. On the chicken and rice, you will, just because your body can break it down efficiently. Your gut knows how to handle it. All these wee things
I think
tie in. So
the gut element's huge, and it's overlooked. So you could take let's just say for argument's sake, a plate full of Haribo, and then a plate full of what you say, the chicken, the rice. The rice will have fiber, and say some vegetables. The vegetables have got fiber, and there's various different types of fiber and carbohydrate. Some of which you can digest with amylase and things that your pancreas produces, such like. And then there's elements that you, as in the physical you, can't break down, but your microbes break down. So your microbes eat away at that, and they produce metabolites that benefit us. They might also extract calories, by the way. Short chain fatty acids are a very amazing source of energy that have benefits around the body. So in addition to you will look different, My argument would be you would feel
very
different.
Yeah, 100%.
You'd feel much better. Energy would be more stable across the day. You'd have regular bowel movements, and there wouldn't be a, we've got to run to the toilet kind of thing. But actually, I know it's very taboo to talk about going to the loo. It's particularly in this kind of society in the UK, it's a very taboo subject. But if things are working well down there, you're probably going to be happy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But if they're not, you are not going to be happy. You're going to be worried about needing to run to the loo wherever you are, and it's going to be unpleasant. You're going to be in pain. You're going to be bloated. You're going to have cramp. And actually, we can all take actions every day to help ourselves in that regard. And really what it comes down to is, what are you drinking? Green juice, so on. Yeah. What's on your plate?
Yep.
So that if I fit your macros thing's interesting. And I would imagine not many bodybuilders are eating things other than the staples.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, definitely. It's if it fits your macros is not done at the higher level. It's just not. Maybe, okay, instead of white rice, have sweet potato. That's as adventurous as it gets. So for me, it's kind of like, what are the best in the world doing? Right, okay, well, copy that. It's if you're not winning shows and progressing or attaining that level of physique using if it fits your macros method, then it obviously isn't superior.
What about other, and I'm asking this, I genuinely don't know, are there bodybuilders who are purely veggie or vegan?
Yeah, there are. Not at top level though.
Not at the top level?
No, not at top level.
Is there a single bodybuilder who is at what you describe as the top, who is openly, I don't eat any meat at all?
No.
Fascinating.
I honestly can't think of one.
Fascinating.
It's not doable. You cannot build that level of muscle mass without animal sources of protein. You can't.
So that's a big statement, Andy.
I know, but it's true.
I'm not saying it's not possible or not true. I'm trying to understand why. Is it like it's hard to consume enough protein, or is it there's some other elements?
Yeah, well, we've got our whole source protein, animal sources. So we've got the entire spectrum of amino acids, and then in plant protein you don't. So that's definitely the factor there that kind of limits growth. Because as a vegan or a vegetarian, you absolutely, well, especially a vegetarian, but because you've got the eggs and stuff like that in there. But a vegan can definitely build muscle. I've seen it because I've got vegan clients, and but are you sort of like female competitors can get away with being vegan because they don't need to have that level of muscle mass. But you will not be a giant bodybuilder being a vegan. You won't.
It's fascinating. You mentioned the giant bodybuilders, and how often do you see somebody who's like that big and that lean? Very rarely.
Yeah.
But I suppose natural public reaction would be steroids.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That would be the first thing they would say, or I would look like that if I took steroids. But what you've described over the course of this podcast is that that's probably one element. But what you're saying is that you're eating until you're eating so often and so much that you're never actually hungry.
No.
Wow.
No.
Okay.
So,
and then every session is.
You've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it. And we watched it. It's quite something. So really, what we're saying here is that this is a lifestyle that not many people understand at all.
It's a religious lifestyle. It is. It really is. It's. I get very passionate about this because obviously you got the whole kind of people who just destroy the work you've put in off one word. There's the steroid accumulation. I am, this is what it's like. I will pay for you to do my diet for a week. I guarantee you won't get past Wednesday. I guarantee you won't get past Wednesday. I guarantee you will not. Training like I do, the adherence to sleep, the adherence to making sure that everything's on point in terms of digestion, my food's in on time, getting rid of no social life, all this sort of stuff. It's bodybuilding does not have the amount of respect that it should have. Yes, we're very, very open about anabolic use and steroid use within the sport.
Yep.
I think that's a good thing because we've got two ways you can go. You can go untested bodybuilding or you can go natural bodybuilding.
Yeah.
There is literally in our sport, you can go two ways. There's two ways you can go. So you can literally choose. It's not covered up like it is in other sports.
And that anabolic piece is just one element. It's one part of the puzzle. It is not the only.
No.
Or you know, the what you're describing is that everything's important. We've not talked about sleep actually. So let's talk about sleep. You know, I'm sure you've got people that come to you saying, "I want to get huge, and I'm doing everything." And then you say, "Well, how many hours sleep are you getting at night?" I'm guilty, but I'm getting better. And they say, "I don't know, 4 or 5 hours." Yeah, because I'm working so hard. I don't need sleep.
Yeah,
but really,
you do.
Sleep is key.
Yeah,
and you sleep a lot, don't you?
So I get
you sleep a lot.
Yeah, I try to get 8 hours a night, and I try and do 2 naps during the day as well. Yeah. So even if the naps are only 15 minutes, that's enough to kind of recharge and get what I need. But it's massively important. It wasn't until I started really prioritizing I was like, the difference is phenomenal. Yeah. It's insane just how important it is. I mean, you deprive yourself of sleep for 48 hours, you'll see how bad you are across all fronts. Everything's ruined because of sleep being off. So if I don't get 8 hours a night, if I know that I'm not going to get 8 hours a night, I get really agitated.
What's your sleep routine then? Like, do you take a certain supplement? Do you stop using your phone before a certain time? What's your sleep repertoire?
I'm so busy with my work that I have to be on my phone or laptop until I go to bed, but it's never, I don't think it's ever impacted me go to bed. So in terms of sleep supplements, ZMA, GABA, melatonin.
You take melatonin?
Yeah.
Every night?
Every night, 10 milligrams.
10 milligrams is a pretty big dose, but I guess you're a big guy, so...
Yeah. That's through experimentation.
Yep.
Done 2, done 5 for a while. I thought, let's try 10.
Yep.
I was like, 10, I feel...
You feel really good, yeah?
Really good in the morning, yeah.
I think melatonin is really interesting.
Yeah.
There's some evidence, and I'm not as hot on it as I was at one point. I think that suggests in animal models that it can prevent or offset or delay some of the symptoms associated with neurodegenerative disease. I think Alzheimer's.
I've read some of that, yeah.
Yes, it's really interesting. I'm not hot on it. I'm going to get someone on here to talk about sleep and melatonin. Cool, yeah. Let's really explore it. But I think what I'm trying to say is it might have other benefits in addition to improving your sleep. And I'm fascinated that you've also with that experimented and got to a point where you think this is it.
Yeah.
And do you think for all people, if they're really serious about wanting to look better or feel better, that self-experimentation thing is really important?
Trying
and tweaking.
Yeah. I would say it is, yeah. If not doing it yourself or getting a good coach to do it for you, that's definitely... there is no blanket plan. You can hand someone a template, but it will change very quickly just to kind of ensure that it's kind of fully tailored to them. So, yeah, it's not an exact science. Nutrition and bodybuilding is not an exact science. There is no X, Y, Z. This is what you do. You'll look like that. It is very dependent on the person.
Right. So there's the genetics piece, and there's also the microbiome, which is very different. When I got interested in this, no one was talking about the microbiome. I'm going to say this. I mean, training.
Yeah.
Look back at the old magazines. No one's talking about the microbiome.
Yep.
But there are a lot of people now in the sport talking about the microbiome.
Yeah.
Like Lane Norton, for example, is talking about the microbiome all the time. So it's becoming a thing that's becoming better appreciated.
Yeah.
And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, people like yourself and your clients will all be thinking about, in addition to what's my training like, it will also be what's my diet like for me, but also what's my diet like for my microbes.
Yeah.
Because if that's in a great place, then my training's going to be good. You mentioned elimination diets.
Yeah.
And how for some of your clients and maybe even you're experiencing better blood flow. And so what's that all about then? You're changing your diet and you're experiencing like profound benefit like across the board, or?
I think what it is, if we're talking about kind of, if your body can digest and utilize nutrients from a certain source more efficiently than another, then that's going to allow you to maximize the effects of training. So one of the things that many bodybuilders seek and kind of base what is a good workout is off the pump and how much blood flow you can accumulate.
Pump.
Yeah, throughout the entire session. So if that's enhanced.
What is the pump, sorry?
Just as much, just blood flow, like, to the muscle. So
when it's like, it feels
like a start, like, you know, when like you run until your legs fall off and they're throbbing by the end, that's a pump. That's lactate, blood accumulation. So if that feeling, that sensation is greater, then we know that your body is, quote unquote, utilizing those nutrients more efficiently, if it's from a certain source. So I've seen elimination diets where someone's been like, I've been bloated for the past 3 years and just kind of put up with it.
Wow.
Yeah, literally.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then what happened? You took them through a process?
Yep, just one source at a time, taking it out for 3 to 5 days, sometimes even longer. Seeing the effects. If there's no change, putting the source back in, taking another thing out, just doing that until you find the culprit. And the culprits have ranged massively from a certain.
Yeah, let's talk about that then.
Yeah.
So, what have you seen?
Let's go with maybe the biggest culprit.
Milk is one, isn't it?
Well, that's not really. There's not a lot of that in a bodybuilding diet anyway. So, oats. Definitely, oats is top. Is definitely top 3 of sources that people they just can't handle.
Is that a gluten?
Yeah.
element?
So yes. The thing is though, oats. I hope I'm right, but oats don't actually have gluten in them. What happens is when they're processed, that's when gluten's added in when it's contaminated with other carbohydrate sources.
Yep.
When you buy gluten-free oats, those oats just have gone through a complete gluten-free process of going from the mill through to packaging.
Got it. Got it.
So, but even that, some people's guts can pick on it. Mine can. If I eat a particular brand, just say a supermarket's own brand of oats, I will have digestive distress that day, 3 to 4 hours later after eating that. That doesn't happen with gluten-free oats. So there is something there. So
fascinating.
Certain vegetables, broccoli and cauliflower are massive. Everyone's like chicken, rice, broccoli. That's a bodybuilding diet.
Yep.
The amount of people who actually can't eat broccoli it's really, really high. It's things like that.
What about an apple?
Not really noticed anything in terms of fruit too much. Bananas are sometimes an issue. Get a little bit gastric issues with that. I had one. What was the other one there? A lot of products, like you got whey protein powders, amino acid powders, these kind of things also have artificial things in them that interfere with the gut massively. So sometimes we just switch brands and it's sorted. Sometimes we're like, right, we can't even use an amino acid supplement, things like that. So
it's fascinating. That this exclusion diet, the self-experimentation thing, I think is so important, and it's going to be a theme that I come back to over and over again on this podcast, because there is no one size fits all.
Yeah, definitely.
And if you want to take control of your microbiome, you're going to have to do a little bit of experimentation yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
We noticed in our office, because we provide all sorts of benefits for our staff in the form of food and drinks like this green juice, for example. And we mix it up. So we bring new stuff in, see if people like it. The thinking there is, I'm trying to build an organization where people leave work healthier than when they come in through the door. Yeah. That's my vision. Yeah. And there's an element of not providing any of the bad type foods, creating an environment where people can thrive, yoga during the week, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I noticed recently we brought in a new type of protein bar, and it had a variety of things that hadn't been anything else, like soy protein, I think, was in there. And multiple people said to me that they had been feeling, they've been running
awful.
to the, so people have just avoided them. Yeah. So there must be some trigger in there that everyone's reacting badly to. So we're just going to stop that. Yeah. But it aligns to what you're saying. You can eat something and then within 3 to 4 hours, maybe even less time, something's happening. Yeah. And if you remove that, then your quality of life is going to improve.
It is baffling to me how many people just go through life just accepting, like, they eat a certain thing, they feel a certain way. but they'll still eat it. It's really it's mad, and like how many. I'd like to get your opinion on this as well. Like how much, just say bowel cancer could we maybe avoid due to diet, and people actually caring, or the knowledge around nutrition all the amount of resources that are there is awful. It really is. Like I've had people who have competed in bodybuilding for years and didn't know that a banana was a carb. Like, come on. That is. I remember he said that to me. I was like, please tell me you're joking. Please tell me you're joking. But look at the general population as a whole. Like the nutritional knowledge is horrendous, let alone the digestion knowledge. So there definitely needs to be some sort of way to, try get more knowledge out there, really. So,
so there's a couple of things to unpack there. I mean, the bowel cancer question, I can't answer. That's a big question. How much would we have if everybody changed their diets in particular ways? My own view is that I think that bowel cancer and many, many other diseases, conditions would be less prevalent, less severe if everybody took actionable, sort of solid change every day. So changing their diet, changing their sleep, all this kind of stuff. I think it all sort of makes a difference.
100%, yeah.
General nutritional knowledge in this country, I think, is pretty poor. And I'm not really sure why that is. There's a lot of good information out there on the internet. Much of it is conflicting, though. And people are always looking for a really quick, simple fix. Like, can I take a pill, for example?
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed is, so I have clients come to me and say, like, I found this thing on the shelf. Can I use this? Can we put it in the diet? And you'll look at it and it says, one serving includes this. This is the nutritional breakdown of one serving. Doesn't tell you what a serving is.
Right.
So what you're supposed to do with that information, you can't do anything. So the average person who isn't too clued up is going to look at that and go, okay, well, I'm going to assume a serving's a bag, but then that's 30,000 calories. You know what I mean? So it's wee things like that. For instance, last week, one of my clients came to me and said, "Oh, mate, I bought this different white rice from Sainsbury's," and I was like, "Okay," and he was like, "It says it's got 24 grams of carbs per 100 gram," and I was like, "That's wrong. If it's raw weight, if we're considering raw weight, it's sold in raw weight, so it should be in raw weight. But actually, that was definitely the macronutrient breakdown of cooked rice.
Yep.
So someone's going to take that and completely throw off how much they're taking in. 3 months down the line, they've added 10 pounds. Like, how have I done that? It's because all the macronutrients are off. So even if the supermarkets aren't getting it right, then how do you expect, I walk around knowing hundreds of different foods, macros just off the top of my head, but that's
quite unusual.
That's unusual.
Yeah.
So how do you expect someone to make the right choices, the right decisions when even the supermarkets aren't labeling their food right? Things like that. It's mad. Well, it's really quite scary.
What is also scary is just how available very calorie dense, micronutrient light food is.
Yeah.
And I think just instinctively, based on how we've evolved, we're more likely to seek that because it tastes good and it triggers dopamine pathways in the brain.
Yeah.
I also think that the bugs adapt. I can't really explain this scientifically. I'm hoping someone come on here and just make a beautifully elegant explanation. But I think that the bugs adapt to what's going in and they might start to trigger cravings, or they might be involved in cravings.
Yeah.
The gut is connected to the brain
Yeah.
through some mechanisms that we do understand, but through others that I think need to be fully elucidated.
Yeah.
And people get into a cycle of chocolate, sugar, so on, and then the cravings come, and then they just get stuck there.
Yeah.
You mentioned colon cancer. I think we as a society are very fiber deficient.
Yep.
So we should be targeting like 50 grams a day. Some of the Amazonian tribes are hitting like 80 plus grams of fiber a day, and their microbiome looks very different to the Western population.
Yeah.
They also don't suffer from autoimmune disease.
Yeah.
Right? So what's going on there? I don't know. But I mean, what can we do for society to help people eat better? Is it an education thing? Is it an access thing? Is it, I mean, one of the things could be that people just don't know how good it feels to feel good.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
They've just never felt good.
Yeah. If you've spent your entire life just like not eating the whole source, fresh food, then you just accept that's the norm. And that you'll go through your entire life doing that. So when you have clients who are very overweight, you're not trying to break. You won't change that person in 6 months. As much as I wish I could, you're trying to battle 30 years of horrendous eating habits to try and get that person back to a semi-decent place. But so yeah, it's definitely a cultural thing where we're just bombarded with just awful nutrition from day one. Well, for a lot of people, and it's about trying to break that cycle. I wish I could give you an answer of how we do that in Scotland. That's a monumental task.
It's a big one, and we should maybe do an episode on it at some point. For me, some key things would be early life intervention.
Yeah.
From a purely microbiome perspective, the early years are critical. That's when you start to form what it becomes later in life.
Yeah.
But also, you mentioned habits. Habits are so powerful.
Yeah.
Like, how many days over the last 365 have you not brushed your teeth?
Exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? So why is that? It's a habit, and you can't see yourself doing anything else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for you, training's now a habit.
Yep.
Sleep over 8 hours is a habit. And you mentioned you get a bit,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But you can get to that place with your diet too.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
The prospect of, for me, eating McDonald's 3 times a day for 7 days. Oh my goodness. That feels like a form of torture.
Yeah, just thinking about that.
I can't.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody did that though, didn't they? What was that again? There was a show.
Super Size Me, was it not?
Super Size Me. Yeah, Super Size Me.
Channel 4 had that. What was that one?
What happened to him again?
It was everything was off the charts by the end of the month. It was awful.
I need to make a note to have a look at that.
Pre-diabetes or something like that by the end of the month.
Right. Yeah. This goes back to the if it fits your macros type thing, I guess. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
Oh, I forgot all about that. And somebody on that show said, McDonald's is the problem or something like that, didn't they? And they got in big trouble. It's been a while since I've seen that. And I think schools as well, that's really important. Now, I don't know about you, but what was lunchtime like at grammar school? Did you go to Marmaris and classical?
These were all like the
honey chili chicken.
I can't remember what year it was. Was it not? Maybe, exactly. I don't know if it was like 2007, 2008. Like the Scottish government put in like new rules as to what food could be served in schools, but that just forced all the kids to go outside, right? Go outside. So
maybe we need role models to say, look, guys, just eat your veggies.
It's a hard one because my diet was horrendous when I was that age. So it's really hard, and I was served home cooked for all my life.
But your diet at school was bad.
It was awful. Because that's what everyone else is doing.
That's what everyone else is doing.
Imagine, I don't know, for me,
for sure.
Maybe I just had a terrible friendship group, but if I whipped out a Tupperware box with a chicken breast and white rice in a school lunch hall, you'd be obliterated. Like, there's no way you can eat that in front of your mates. They'd be like, what are you eating? Chicken breast and rice. So, like I said, it's definitely a cultural thing and society thing.
Do you think that with the invention of Instagram, there are more children now or people at school who are eating like that because they've got idols that they can connect with so easily?
I hope there is.
Yeah, because there might be kids in school now who at 16 have said, I want to be a bodybuilder. They could be following you.
Yeah.
Right? And your video logs and such like. Yeah.
Well, when I got into this, I didn't know anything about nutrition, but I did know what was good and bad food. I did know that I can't be eating, like a mince pie and chips for lunch. I knew I couldn't be doing that. So I was like, right, okay, for lunch instead I'll bring a tuna sandwich and like a packet of like Walker's Light. That's kind of what I did for a wee while, and then eventually I kind of like, right, let's go for like pasta dishes and stuff like that rather than the crap you get from shops. So and I looked up to bodybuilders and I saw what they were eating. I was like, well, they're not eating crap, so I can't be eating crap. So yeah, I do think with social media being a far greater tool than it was 10, 15 years ago, we will see hopefully a shift in how children and teenagers eat and then set them up. So
there's and I agree. There's also danger though. I mean, we mentioned the Photoshop. I think there's a danger that they get an unrealistic expectation around what they can achieve, and also feel almost self-conscious because everyone apparently looks so beautiful all the time. Is it not the case that a lot of the stuff that people idolize is like one photo taken at the end of what you call a prep with the right lighting, maybe they've had some editing, the filter and that kind of stuff. That's kind of generally true, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, 100%.
So can anybody look like that all year round?
You can, but then you're touching on a different subject of how unhealthy that is to look a particular, to be like bone shredded
All
year round. That is, like I said earlier, it's controlled starvation to like that. You're literally controlling how quickly you're dying from malnutrition. Like, look at it that way.
Wow.
That's a pretty like extreme way to look at what bodybuilding dieting is, but that's essentially it. If you continue to go and go and go, you'd eventually die. Like you would.
And have people died?
Not from malnutrition. No. The kind of deaths that you see in bodybuilding come from like diuretic use, things like that, where you've depleted your body massively of electrolytes, and obviously we know that there's a fine balance of that. So
exquisitely fine tuned, so people can go the wrong way and
but
that's I guess the dark side to the sport.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't have. It's definitely not all,
But for the general population, it's never going to happen to them.
No.
So, what would you say are like core key pieces of advice to somebody who wants to get into good shape, not become as big as humanly possible? Because we touched on that, and it's the failure, it's the eating so much that you basically never hungry. But for like the more so like the general listener or the general person, they want to get into shape. What are the key elements do you think that they should be looking at? And that can range from the training, the diet, get a coach, all that kind of stuff. So
number one would be to like start to develop good habits.
Yeah.
So take one thing at a time. It doesn't have to be nutrition, training, cardio. Everything has to be 100% from the get-go. It could be saying, next week, getting up at 6 and I'll go for a 30-minute walk. And then the month later, get up at 6, go for my walk, prep my meals for the day. It's that habit forming over time. That is the most crucial part to being as fit and healthy as possible.
So what you're saying is, I think, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but I think what you're saying is, don't try and do everything at once.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So make a small change.
Again, I don't like using myself as an example because I'm a very extreme example, but my habits have been formed over 14 years of training, 14 years of bodybuilding.
Yep.
So, and I'm a very disciplined person, regardless of if it's sport, business, anything. I think I'm very, very disciplined.
Yep.
So for someone who maybe lacks that just shows you the length of time that you need to invest in developing these habits.
Can discipline be taught or learned? Is it something that's innate in people, or do you think people can become disciplined?
Yeah,
they can.
Yeah, I definitely think I can be taught. I grew up in a household where I was told that nothing's handed to you on a plate. You have to work for everything that you want in life, and I think that's always lived with me. But don't get me wrong, that was always my mum. That came from my mum, and my mum wasn't some sort of high flying entrepreneur. She was just a nurse for 40 years. But she was like, if you want anything, you need to graft for it.
You got to put the work in.
You got to put the work in, and I knew that doing like first jobs as like a paper boy, I knew I needed to do 3 paper rounds instead of 1 if I want to make more money, all this sort of stuff. So it's definitely ingrained. And from a sporting aspect, like the dedication that I have towards bodybuilding was, and like the coaches that I had growing up through rugby and stuff, they all kind of played a huge role. They probably don't think they did, but they definitely did. You know Kev Winess?
I do.
Yeah. So Kev.
I mean, I don't know him personally, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yeah, a very
bro.
Yeah. He was at the time I hated him. I hated him being coached by him. He was just so brutal. But looking back, I'm like, maybe that's why I'm so brutal with my bodybuilding, because I just had that person at that time in my life tell me, you must do this, you must do that. I'd done Taekwondo before I played rugby. David Harrell was the coach with that as well, and he was like, you wouldn't mess with him. Like, he was, again, that discipline instilled from 5-6 years old. I think that's kind of carried me forward. So
discipline is key, isn't it? It's core. And for you, it seems like it could be so easy to just go, I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
Or, oh my goodness, 220 kg to total failure. And also on that, is there some element of your brain that's like, and this is going to sound very pessimistic, is there some element of your brain that's like, okay, if something snaps, or if I get dizzy, particularly when you're at the end of a prep, and I lose consciousness or I slip, then there's 220 plus kg on my back, and I could die. Like, does that ever come into your head, or do you just? And if so, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think every human being would think the worst may happen. I tore my hip last July, and going into all kind of my leg sessions now, I'm like, is my hip going to tear again? Is it going to hold up for this set?
Still there.
Still there.
It's a niggle in your brain.
Yeah, but there's also a part of me, some people may consider it destructive, where I'm just saying, I don't care what happens. I don't care. I'll do this set. If my body breaks now, that was the price to pay. Sorry. So, yeah.
That's one of the dark places, though, isn't it? You know?
Yeah. I mean, I said at the start of the podcast, like when I train certain exercises, like you have to be violent. Like you have to go to a violent place in your head. I'm not a violent person. Like most people aren't, but one of the things that I kind of picture in my head is like just someone trying to hurt someone I care for, and that's the kind of like aggression. I mean, you've seen it in my videos and stuff, and you've seen me train in person as well, and that's the kind of place I'm in. So
it's not the first time I've heard somebody say that who's at an elite level in strength sport or bodybuilding, maybe even any sport, and they call it the dark place.
Yeah. So it's not a place you should be in.
No,
constantly. It's not.
I don't know if it's healthy.
It's definitely not healthy. No, but you need to you need that level of aggression and flight in the fight or flight response. Fight in the flight or flight response. To do that, you just can't, because, like you said, it's pretty unsafe. You know, you're trying to really push your body to the certain place, and if you've not got aggression, you can't do it. You just can't do it. So I have these mental cues that I go through prior to lifting that kind of weight. You know, I listen to like death metal, deathcore music. That kind of helps.
These cues, these are like fictional scenarios that you think about. One of family member getting hurt or something like that. Yeah.
So that's one of the things I go through.
How do you make? Sorry to cut you off, but how do you make sure that doesn't seep into your life away from the gym?
No one's ever asked me that.
Because that's
I don't know. I don't know how I tap into it and turn, but I do turn it off. I just turn it off.
You turn it off?
When the set's done, I don't think about it anymore.
Because that's this goes without saying, but a horrible thing to think about. And I guess for it to have the effect that you want it to have, it's got to be real in your head for at least a moment in time.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I think if you can channel, that's where bodybuilding's amazing. Like I rarely get angry or irate, because I'm channeling so much aggression into my training that I've got none left for the rest of the day. You talk about outlets and stuff, and you know, fitness and bodybuilding is definitely a very, very positive one to kind of release that. So, but yeah, it's that's developed over time. It's just a place that you have to pull yourself and just kind of imagine these thoughts.
And do you speak to many people about it, or is it more of a this is an Andy thing? You know, I keep it to myself.
Yeah, it's like I said to you, that if you're trying to put yourself in a violent place. If you tell someone off the street that's like, oh God, I'm not going anywhere near this guy.
Yep.
But I'm fairly open, like what I depict and what I go into the session. It's
and again, we'll bring it back to someone on the street sees someone as big as you and they go, you know. But actually, this is another thing now, in addition to all the other things that we discussed on this episode, is that dark place that you need to go to lift the weights.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I find that absolutely fascinating. Could you do it thinking about rainbows and positive?
No chance.
Well, hold on a second. Let me just push back on you a little bit. Because really, you're training your mind, aren't you? And there's various different ways to train your mind, techniques, tools, methodologies, and it differs between the East and the West in terms of the philosophies. But could you, with help from somebody maybe unlock that, I guess it's a fight or flight response through positive thoughts? Like, can you get so excited, or is it you just need that dark, violent image to lift the weights that you're lifting? Because that could be, it's maybe healthier to think positively, I guess.
There is an aspect of my lift that is positive. One of the things that I'll tell myself when I'm away to just say do like a 220 squat is, I've beaten this weight before. It's not going to beat me. I think that's very positive. Like,
that is
I
positive.
have clients who they're away to get under the bar and they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. Automatically, you've killed that set. You've already implanted it in your brain.
That's it.
So if you tell yourself, I've already defeated this weight, it can't beat you again. It can't beat you again. So, but no, I think I always scale everything back in terms of like evolution. So like 70,000, 80,000 years ago, you know, there was existential threats everywhere to your family and to people that you loved.
Yep.
So you had to be forced into that place. And I think aggression and violent aggression is, I personally believe it's a very natural emotion to have. It's just unlocking that, because in today's society we don't have to. Well, hopefully a lot of us don't have to take us to that place, but that is there in everyone. That aggression is, that's what I try and tell clients who are getting very serious about lifting weights, is you need to try and unlock that somehow. And for myself, I'm lucky I grew up in a very masculine environment with all the sports that I did. So kind of tapping into that was a little bit easier than maybe the average person. But
I think anyone who's achieved a very high level of anything knows that there's places that you need to go to in your mind to make sure that you perform at your very, very best, or you achieve something that you otherwise wouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
But lifting an immensely heavy thing is probably a little bit different to, you know, well, it is a little bit different to other things, and the mindset's probably a bit different. Yeah. Andy, we've really got a couple minutes left, so we've been talking for good length of time. Yeah. So Mark's been coming round saying 5 minutes. Just a couple more now before we finish up. Any advice for your past self, if you could go back in time and say, hey, Andy, just think about this or do this?
Yeah.
You know?
If we're talking about like going right back, I wish I had this amount of, we're talking about that aggression just there on a rugby pitch.
Right.
How much better my performance on the pitch would have been. Because you know yourself, you rocked up sometimes and you're like, oh, can we board this morning? You know, it's too cold. Or usually in Scotland it was like, oh, it's far too cold.
Often very cold.
Yeah. And
you land in that puddle, it's covered in a bit of sleet and snow, and it's like, wow. Exactly. But I think if I had the attitude that I have towards my current training, I think I'd have been a different beast on a playing field. So, anything nutrition-wise, sleep-wise, you know?
Going back nutrition, like I said, I kind of picked that up quite quickly, even though I didn't really know what I was doing. But yeah, definitely, we'll talk about gut health. Obviously, this is what the podcast is all about. It's going back and not eating certain things just because so and so was eating it. Things like that. I did a lot of that back in the day. A lot of stuff like eating like sweet potato, salmon, all these sort of things just really do not agree with me. But so and so top bodybuilder was eating it, you must eat that. Things like that. I'd tell myself to avoid doing that kind of stuff. Because again, I remember when I sorted my gut out and I was like, my God, the difference to everything. It was just, I couldn't believe it. And it was amazing how one of my clients, Kieran, a couple of weeks ago, he was the same. He's like, what a difference. He's been bodybuilding he's been competing since he was 15. And he was like, I can't believe the difference. Just changing a few things. That's all it took.
The difference in his quality of life.
Quality of life, quality of training, everything. Like not walking about with a bloat 24/7 is when that's gone. You're like, my God, I actually walked about with that for 5+ years. So yeah, and
it's just one change. I just don't eat this or eat that, and I feel immeasurably better.
Yeah,
so
that's literally it.
Yeah. Amazing. And on that note, let's cut it. Hey, Andy, thanks so much, man. Thank you very much.
No problem at all.
Appreciate that. That was a really good conversation.
Yeah, it was excellent.
To learn more about the guest on today's episode or more about the Inside Matters podcast, please visit insidematters.health. Thank you.